Hi, and thanks for joining. My name is Kevin Brown, President and CEO of Accencio. Today, I'll be talking to you about intellectual property intelligence solutions designed specifically for the way researchers think. Many thanks to our friends at ChemAxon for allowing us to join, and I look forward to presenting this to you today. So what will we talk about today? I'll talk to you a bit about IP Geoscape. IP Geoscape is a very unique tool designed for medicinal chemists, allowing them to use intellectual property to its fullest potential in their research efforts. I'll give you some real world examples, specifically our COVID-19 initiative, and I'll talk to you a bit about ChemAxon's Chem Curator product and its amazing effect on time and cost savings for our IP Geoscape product. And then I'll talk to you a bit about the future of IP strategy, at least as we see it from a researcher's perspective. So who is Accencio? Accencio is a technology company driving innovation through the use of intellectual property. The challenge has always been fairly straightforward in our opinion. It's that seeing and harnessing the full potential of IP is hard. My background is in medicinal chemistry, and having an understanding of IP, of course, was very important, but more often than not, I had to go to outside counsel or inside counsel, IP attorneys, the patent attorneys, to really get that understanding for me to guide my research efforts. There was nothing specifically created for me as a chemist that I could use from an FTO perspective visually to allow me to guide my research and development efforts. So my partner and I, we created a product that does this. And so we encourage everyone to look through an IP lens. So all of our products are called IP lenses. And they're called IP lenses because they use IP as the medium through which to digest all information. So that's curated data, compiled intelligence, actionable insights, all consumed through an IP lens. We call it an IP solution designed for the way researchers actually think. So what is an IP lens? Just so you get a feel for what I mean. So let's say, for example, we were talking about a biological target area of interest. What we would do is we would identify all the IP associated with that biological target area of interest, especially, let's say, for example, it was a small molecule study. Once we identify all the small molecule IP, we then extract the small molecule information, all the molecules from those patents or patent applications, and we create a visualization illustrating the similarity that exists between that IP. So that's what the lens is. It's a illustration or a visualization, that illustrates the similarity that exists between the IP that's in question. What we then do, depending on the nature of the question by the customer, is we add additional data, or the customer can add additional data as needed. So if this is an R&D question, for example, maybe it's biological data and predictive analytics. If it's a business development question, maybe it's financial information about some of the competitors, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, you use the visualization plus the added data to answer your specific business or research questions. So here's the IP Geoscape. I mentioned this to you in the agenda. So it is a visual landscape of the subject matter that exists within IP. Current applications include both small and large molecules, and it's available for independent use. So what is IP Geoscape and how do you interpret it? So how do you read the IP Geoscape lens? So let's say, for example, what you're looking at here represents all the molecules, small molecules associated with a particular biological target area of interest. So what do we do as Accencio? We identify all the patents and patent applications, extract all the small molecule information, stick it into our IP Geoscape engine, and this is what pops out. So each color here represents a specific IP owner. So all the colors, the different colors here represent different companies or universities or what have you. The markings all represent one specific company compound. So each individual marker here is an individual company compound. And the shape that marking takes represents the specific patent disclosing that compound. So I've circled this tan square here. So that would represent this molecule being in this particular patent application, and the color meaning that it belongs to the tan colored company. And of course, you would know who that is when you see this in the platform. Compounds are clustered together based on structural similarity. That really is the only thing you need to understand, which is the closer the markers are to one another, the closer those molecules are related structurally. The further apart they are, the more different they are structurally. The map basically built itself out by grouping clusters together also based on structural similarity. So let me show you one of these. So what you're looking at here is the IP geoscape lens for JAK3 inhibitors. Again, so what we would do is identify all the patents and patent applications claiming an affinity for JAK3. We would extract the small molecule information, stick it into our IP geoscape engine, and this is what pops out. All the colors here, again, represent individual companies, universities, or what have you. And I'll show you, for example, this is the AbbVie footprint. This is the ARI footprint. This is the Array biopharma footprint, and all the markers are active. Right? So you can see the molecules, for example, that belong to Array and where they sit. And you can get a feel for overlaps that may exist between companies, things of that nature. If I take you to the competitive overview, you get a feel for, at the highest level, everyone that's operating, when they were filing their patent applications, their level of activity in the area. For example, AbbVie again, you can see here, looks like 2008 and 2011 is when they were most active in the area, at least from a priority date. Almaril, a little bit more consistent. You can see, for example, Roche over here, what they were doing in the years they were operating, and all of this is active. You click on any of these markers, you can go out to the Roche patents and see what those actually have to say. But if we go back to the landscape here, there are many ways that medicinal chemists use this type of information to guide their research efforts. One of the easiest things, or the first things that you may do, you notice here, the black spaces that exist, this unoccupied space. So you'll find researchers that will take surrounding structural information and try to fill in these black spaces with new chemical entities, for example. But there's so many other things that you can do. I'll show you, for example, let's go back to the AbbVie footprint. You see here, this is the AbbVie footprint. If you go over to the analysis tab here, you can see this is the same AbbVie footprint. So this is the AbbVie footprint. It's just now represented by a set of tiles. And anywhere there are green tiles, these are clusters of AbbVie molecules that have no overlapping IP with any competitor. But yellow and red represent close overlaps being yellow, red being significant overlaps. So anywhere you see, for example, red here, these are significant overlaps between AbbVie and other competitor companies, with at least from a structural perspective. So you can see here, there's Roche, Vertex, Astellas, a number of different companies. And we can always come back to this landscape here and do some overlap. So let's, for example, look at Roche. Right? Let's see what that overlap looks like between Roche and AbbVie. Right? So you can see here, right? The Roche being the blue color, AbbVie being this sort of tan color. And let's look at some of those molecules to see why it's saying that they're overlapping. Very clearly, you can see why, right? So this is the Roche molecule with a priority date of 2011. And it looks like here's the AbbVie molecule with also a priority date of 2011. Very, very close. Structurally, you can see why there's these levels of overlap here. But I'll take you back, show you two other things before we jump back into the presentation. From a medicinal chemistry perspective, I told you about filling in some of these black spaces. So this is the same landscape. It's just been reduced to a set of white tiles now. And any of these tiles that you select will show you the most common substructure within that tile and the molecules that are in that particular cluster and the companies to which they belong. So you can see here, for example, number of pharmacopoeia molecules in this particular cluster. You can see here, for example, ligand, pharmacopoeia. And what researchers do from a scaffold hopping perspective is they can look at what's going on, for example, around one of these black spaces. and take those substructures and some of these pieces of molecules and begin to put them together with some of their own moieties and start filling in some of these black spaces with new chemical entities. And of course, thinking like a chemist, being able to do an analysis by chemotype, right? Seeing what chemotypes seem to be sort of prevalent in the landscape when they showed up, who was doing it, who was making these, what companies were operating or sort of building molecules or chemistry reaction plans around these chemotypes. And we do that based on the chemotype, but also chemotype by assignee. So for example, AbbVie seems to have 3 separate chemotypes that they were working on and that they build most of their patents and patent applications in the area around. So that's the IP geoscape. And I told you a bit about its creation, but this is the flow. Very simple. Once the target is identified and the patents are identified, the molecules need to be extracted from the patents, sent into the IP geoscape engine, and then, of course, the IP geoscape is used. The one thing I will point out here is that this is where Chem Curator really plays a significant role for us. It's in the extraction of small molecule information from the patents and patent applications that we identify as being important to an IP geoscape that we're creating. And I'll talk to you a bit about that more on the next few slides. So real world example, COVID-19. So we started a project not too long ago, of course, like many others, to help in the COVID-19 effort. And what we were doing with some of our partners was using IP geoscape to do 2 things: retargeting, retargeting existing molecules associated with biological targets, but those targets are not necessarily indicated for COVID-19. So identifying molecules that don't necessarily have an affinity, or at least it wasn't known that they would have an affinity for COVID-19 related biological targets, and using IP geoscape to retarget them into COVID-19 related biological target areas of interest. And the other that we were doing on the right-hand side here, we were creating IP geoscapes for COVID-19 related biological targets, and through some of our partners, making those IP geoscapes available to researchers. So this is where we are now. On the new molecule side of the equation, we made complementary access to our IP geoscapes available through a COVID-19 library. You can see viral protease inhibitors, RNA polymerase inhibitors, TLR7 antagonists. These are all the geoscapes that we made available, and it's here. If you go to our webpage, under COVID-19, you can see all the viral protease, RNA polymerase, TLR7 antagonists. All of these are made available to researchers through some of our partners. But the one thing I do want to point out here is the Chem Curator difference for Accencio. There were thousands of molecules that we needed to extract in a short amount of time. And by using Chem Curator, our extraction times were reduced by over 95% as opposed to the manual methods that we were using previously. So either we had to do a manual extraction from patents, or we had to try to buy the molecules from a data provider, which was very expensive. So it goes without saying that the efficiency of the Chem Curator tool has been critical to the success of our COVID-19 project and to our IP Geoscape product in general. So many thanks to our friends at ChemAxon. So the future, where do we see things headed, at least from a research perspective? So our hope is to have an industry agnostic software providing AI-supported intellectual property intelligence solutions. And those solutions have the ability to learn how researchers do the work they do. So now there could be better predictions, faster generation of new opportunities and potential products, and really helping the researcher to be more efficient and to generate new molecules in an ongoing and iterative fashion. From an IP Geoscape perspective, this is what it looks like, right? So at the top, it's fully integrated software. On the bottom left, it's artificial intelligence, AI researcher is what we call it. I mentioned to you before the possibility of filling in black spaces with surrounding molecules. Well, we're looking at Accencio as having the ability to have an AI that allows that to happen for the researcher in an ongoing and iterative fashion. And then it goes without saying, moving beyond non-molecular IP and beyond biopharma is also the goal. So where are we right now? Well, we just recently launched the IP Geoscape library. So this is IP Geoscapes that are available for independent use. You can see what's available. You can see what's coming soon. The website is down there at the bottom. 20 high value biological targets are available, but if your target isn't there, rest assured that we can create it for you. Just reach out to us and ask, and we will add it to the library, and you can become a subscriber. So with that, I will say thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate our friends at ChemAxon for inviting us, and I appreciate you for joining. Please feel free to get in touch with us at any time. Thank you, and have a great day.